Greetings everyone, and welcome to my next video for Nier on the PlayStation 3. This is the second act of the game, and this is where you are collecting the various pieces of the cipher, or the stone key that will let you get to the final area of the game, or at least I think that's how it works. So, in the last video it ended with one of my favorite scenes in the game, where Kaine is brought out of her petrified state, and there's just a really wonderful scene between her and Emil, as well as Nier, but especially between Kaine and Emil. I like that they're starting to act like siblings in this game, which is really cool. I think both of them need a figure like that in their lives, and so I think that's a really nice touch. But afterwards, you're now speaking to Popola and Devila, and basically saying that the other villagers don't like Kaine and Emil, probably because the way they look, and yeah, it's a pretty ugly thing. Not them, but the fact that the villagers are scared, and it is probably because I think they attract shades to the village, but there's probably another aspect that they are just kind of outsiders and are very different from the folks in the town. So, you know, something that is very relatable to real life. And, you know, Nier reflects on this afterwards, and, you know, he ends up apologizing for the way he exploded in that meeting, and I think that's good. I think it's nice that he is self-reflective of things like that, and you know, he tends to be really hard on himself as well. He has a very I guess strict code of honor and behavior, and you know, he's very black and white, and rarely does he venture away from that. So I think it's nice that he, as well as the other characters in the game, are very consistent, and that can be very difficult in a story to maintain that without giving in to the temptation of making a character do something that they normally wouldn't do for the sake of I guess convenience. And that happens a lot in lesser stories, whether it's a game or anime or a book or movie. I mean, it happens a lot, and it really stands out when it does, and usually makes the viewer or reader roll their eyes, because the humans act a certain way, and when they totally flip on that, when you know, it doesn't make sense. You know, if it's a twist later in a story that makes sense, then fine, but I don't like it when it just kind of happens in a contrived manner. I think it insults the intelligence of the audience, and I'm glad that there is none of that in this game so far. And FYI, that I did finish this game today. I got the first ending. I'll talk more about that in a later video. But yeah, I could say that the story remained consistently good, and you know, there are some surprises, but the main characters really kind of stick to their guns in terms of their personalities and their motives. So I really like that. Anyway, getting back to the actual video. So as you saw, you can hop on a boat now and fast travel, which is fantastic. It's something I did complain about before I even started making YouTube videos about this game, is that the amount of running back and forth that you have to do does get a little tiresome. And so I'm glad that you can now take the boat to, I believe it's four or five different locations. And that's something else I noticed just today, as I kind of took a step back and was sort of evaluating the game after having finished it, is that this title does not have that many locations. And that's really interesting, because the world does feel very big, very large and expansive, but when you think about it, there aren't that many areas. I mean, there's, you know, your village, and you have the seafront, the Eyrie, Forest of Myth, the tower you're at right now, the Facade, and yeah, so, and I'm probably missing one or two, but you know, for the most part, that's it. And so that's kind of cool that I guess the hubs, which would be the open areas, especially the Northern Plains area, make the world feel very big. And so as you're going from place to place, it does really feel like you're traveling miles and miles to get to these various parts of the world. And so I think that's pretty impressive that for a game that has as few locations as this, that they managed to keep it pretty fresh throughout. There is some recycling. You know, you do have to go back to the junk heap, and here you have to go back to this tower, and I think you have to go back another time. So you're going through this area 3 times, and that's not even counting, you know, having to go and collect items for the various subquests like the junk heap, which I looked at some of the quests and the requirements and how rare some of the drops are, and I kind of feel disheartened about that. I'm probably not going to do any of the more tedious side quests, and we'll just go for and do everything that requires that will get me all the weapons, rather, in order to see the final 2 endings. So I don't know why that requirement is there to get all the weapons. Hopefully it's not just arbitrary, but I guess we'll see. So here, I believe you fought this guy the first time when you first met Weiss, and so you take him out again, and it's much easier this time, which is always good. And speaking of much easier, I found the second half of Nier. Actually, before I get to that, I might talk about this scene where Kaine gets impaled through the chest with that Shade's weapon, and yeah, you think she's dead, but no. So you take this guy out, finish taking him out, and then you know, the Shade that's always been sort of foreshadowed as part of Kaine's being comes out here, and so you have to fight her, and it leads to another good scene. But anyway, yeah, getting back to what I was talking about in terms of Nier's difficulty, the second half of the game was, in my opinion, way easier than the first. And I don't know if it's because I got more powerful weapons, or it was designed that way because, you know, Nier's basically dedicated these last 5 years of his life to finding Yona, and probably with each kill he's gotten more pissed off and better at fighting. But yeah, I found that interesting, and to be honest, I really like that. I like that the game was so manageable in its second half. It really allowed me to focus on the story, and that really drove me to the end. It's interesting in that the first half of the game I was so interested in doing all the side quests that were available that it took me a long time to get through it, probably 18, 19 hours to get through the first half of the game. And this final half of the game, where you're collecting the pieces for that key and facing the final boss, only took me a couple days, so I'd say maybe about 5 hours total. So yeah, I found that to be pretty interesting. So I thought that, and I was asking myself, well, why is that? And I do think it's because I so wanted to see where the story was going to go. I felt really compelled to find Yona, because, you know, that has been what this game's been all about. And so yeah, after I beat the game, it was funny because I got to the end and all of a sudden I'm fighting the last boss, and I'm like, whoa, that's it. But there was a point where the game prompted me to save and saying there's no turning back, so I figured, okay, well, this is the end of the game now. So So yeah, and I don't know, I can't remember, it's been so long since I started this game, whether there are multiple difficulties, and if there are, then cool, then there is a harder mode to play, but I really enjoyed the second half of this game, and coming up after I get through this first, or this main story part, where you're in the tower, I believe I spend a good amount of time taking care of some of the various side quests in the world before heading to what I believe is the junk heap is the next area I go to. So here you get your first piece of the stone key. So yeah, I liked that scene between Kaine and Emil. And again, something I mentioned in my last video is that people didn't really like, or there are a lot of folks out there who do not like Emil's voice actor. And yeah, sure, there's some passages, especially when he gets really emotional, that you know, they're not great, but they are far from bad, in my opinion. And again, another thing I had mentioned previously is I think the worst voice actor in this game is for Nier, who thankfully is not in this game hardly at all. So I'm thankful for that. And so right here, after getting that first piece, I go back to Popola. She doesn't really have much information, but yeah, there is a nice little scene here, or a bit of dialogue that you know, further strengthens the relationship between her and Nier. So I like that the game does not forget about arguments that people have had or disagreements. They, I think for the most part, they are resolved and even get touched on a little bit in subtle ways later. So I think that's really nice. So this side quest that I just got is kind of a random encounter that happens by the bridge in the Northern Plains as you're heading to the area, and I do take care of it in a later video. And that was a cool fight, and that gets you one of the weapons that you need, one of the 30 weapons that you need to get the other endings, besides A and B. So here, as you're heading to the junk heap, there is this flashback scene of Gideon and his older brother, and this robot causes this accident to happen. I don't know if it's really an accident, but these big pieces of steel come down and they kill Gideon's older brother. And so this kind of sets into motion his hatred for all things robotic, and yeah, so it's interesting that or actually another thing that kind of I'm reminded of is the voice actor for Gideon is the same person who plays Luca in Bayonetta, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the main character in Infamous, as well as Sasuke from Naruto, the anime. And so he is a voice actor who is very recognizable to me, and so anytime I hear it, it really stands out. And so it was kind of distracting in this particular part of the story, and every time I heard his voice, all I could see in my head was Luca from Bayonetta 2 wearing his funny hat, and thankfully he doesn't curse the way Luca does in the Bayonetta series, especially 2. And so he gives you another weapon, and he is going to take care of it with the materials, and that you have to go into the junk heap again and collect, I believe it's these titanium pieces from these big robots that are pretty easy to beat, but it just takes time to go down there and do it. And so I cut out most of it But here, yeah, is one of the big robots, and you take them out and you collect the titanium alloy. And after you get a few of those, you can basically just go through here, and before you leave, and you will be coming back here again, is a spear, so that's another weapon, so don't miss that. And you go back to talking to him, and he's going to fix it, but it'll take him time. And so he'll send you a letter when it's ready, and that will prompt you to come back and finish out this area to do, or which I will do in a later video. And actually, now that I think about it, I may have messed up in my recording, and I might not have that, but we'll see when we get to that. I haven't started editing that. And so here I'm picking up the second of the 3 cargo crates that the woman in Seafront wants you to find. I really thought that was going to be a tedious quest, but when you think about it, there's not a whole lot of water in the world of Nier, and so it's a pretty easy quest. And here you get a letter from the King of Facade saying that he's getting married. I like his little very casual note at the bottom with exclamation points and everything. It's great. It's kind of shows the childlike side of him, and that he is very excited to see you again. And so here's the third one, third cargo, which is found in the village. And so you return it to her, and I believe she gives you 10,000 gold, 20,000 gold. Nice. And gold is kind of hard to get in this game, and I did a little reading, and it turns out that the easiest way to get gold is to grow stuff in your garden. And so I'm gonna have to go buy some rice or something, get a bunch of fertilizer, and get started on it. I might exploit my PlayStation 3 clock just to get it done quickly and get me enough money to buy my weapons. Because some of the other side quests in order to get money are just so time consuming that I don't know if I have it in me to do it. So yeah, moving on. So that woman gave you a quest to find out what happened with her sick kid, and then this guy wants a treasure map, and so Vice gives you a hint. That's where's paper and where are books, and so you go to the library. First, I pick up another quest from Devila in the tavern and start talking to the kids. And so after you find the 3 kids, there's 2 of them down inside the village and then 1 up top on the wall. They'll tell you that you need to go to the Forest of Myth. And here this guy needs a bunch of parts to fix some piece of machinery. I'm hoping that one gives you a lot of money, because I think some of those are hard to find, or are pretty rare drops. And so here in the library, just go to the top, and the north side, or maybe it's the south side, has the damaged map, and they say, okay, well, we got to go to Facade and talk to the weird item store and see if they have anything that can take care of it, which they do. And so you got to get more items to fix the map and bring that back. Haven't done that yet. And so here I'm talking to the 3rd kid, and says, okay, off to the Forest of Myth. So I go to the Forest of Myth and get these berries, and some funny pathfinding. Nier apparently has to strafe around giant tree roots. So you get these berries, and it's kind of a funny scene as you're leaving. Talk to Kaine, and she can eat them just fine, but you eat them and you keel over. It's like poisonous to you, basically. And so yeah, all this stuff, the grass clips right through them. All this stuff is me just taking care of these side quests as I get them, and these are some of the easier ones to do versus the ones where you have to go gather 30 items and bring them back. I really hate quests like that, unless they're easy, but I know they're not designed to be easy, but whatever. It just kind of, it will depend on how much you value your time, whether you'll do all those quests. So Anyway, you get the antidote and you got to take it back. And there's some funny field dialogue about Nier complaining and Vice complaining about their guts. And I haven't ridden one of those boars yet. Kind of a total side note. So here, take care of, complete this quest. Get 10,000 gold from her. That one's a very easy one to get. Requires no fighting, just talking to people. And here I'm catching my 3, I believe they're sandfish. And there's kind of a bug. Kaine is just sort of floating in my boat. I don't know what that's about. I guess the game thinks she's supposed to still be standing on... maybe she's standing on the oar, or she's... actually, it looks like she's moving with the ground, so the game probably thinks she's still standing on the rocks behind me. It's kind of funny. And so eventually you catch this guy, and there you'll get buckets and stupid stuff like that. But once you catch 3, you can bring that back to the guy in Seafront, and he'll give you your next one, which I think is the 7th Fisherman's Gambit. I haven't done that yet. And then another fetch quest. So here I buy what is my favorite weapon in the game, which was that the Phoenix Spear. And I still haven't bought all the weapons from the various blacksmiths around the world. But yeah, the Phoenix Spear, I wasn't sure about the spears at first. I thought I'd just go with the two-handed swords and deal with the insane encumbrance and slow speed, but I'm finding that these spears are just awesome weapons. They take a little more effort to point you in the right direction to hit enemies. At least it feels that way. But it's really good, and the Phoenix Spear, even the level 1 version, is just insanely strong, and it's very fast. And you know, if you do a 3-strike attack with the break with the triangle, you can do some major damage and get through most battles without taking any hits, if not just a couple. So thankfully you can do this little side quest here, getting the mask for the king, which will help him make up new rules. Again, the humor in this game is pretty good, you know, because the Facade doesn't have enough rules. And so yeah, here you can thankfully just buy a crystal from the shop there, and bring that with the other things to that guy. And so you go into the king's chambers, and yay, there's Fyra, one of my favorite characters from this game. I loved her in the quest where you're walking through the desert and going to the temple. I thought she was just adorable, with the way they animated her and how she communicated and the funny little noise she made when she walked. So it's good to see her back. She's a little more grown up and is getting married to the king, so good for her. And so here's the wedding day, and you have a couple conversations with Kaine. Vice kind of gives her some crap about her clothes, and she basically tells him to piss off. But it's always good. I like the banter between them, and this is a nice little scene. So you know, Emil says, yeah, he wants to get married, and he asks you about your wedding, and you don't want to talk about it, and I think he says something like, oh, do you want to get married again? And he's like, that's enough questions, and so you leave to go talk to the king. And I wasn't expecting this, but Emil, I like this line right here. I think it's an important question. It's so, again, the way Kavya designed their scenario and structured their writing is really, really good. I had mentioned during the first time I was in the Facade that there were aspects of this part of the world that reminded me of Nausicaa from Miyazaki, and there are things that remind me of Princess Mononoke, and there's, you know, I think from Miyazaki's more serious works, there's a lot of influence on this game, and I really like that. And the I guess the sensitivity and thoughtfulness of the writing also reflects the works of Miyazaki, in that he does care very much for not just the main characters in his stories, but a lot of the secondary ones as well, and that carries through this game quite a bit. So I think that's truly what is has made me just fall in love with this game, and its storyline in particular. After I beat this game, I immediately started my New Game Plus playthrough, and some of the stuff that I'm seeing there is adding so much to previous scenes in the game that or where lines that you thought were just kind of throwaways or meant to be vague on purpose are now being explained, and that's kind of genius. Most games that do a New Game Plus just sort of do it so that you can finish other quests or keep leveling up or find rare stuff, but rarely does it enhance the core storyline as much as this game has. So that's really, really impressive. And so here, sadly, this wolf shade comes in and seriously injures Fyra, really jacking up this wedding. And unfortunately, in this next scene, she dies. And what's interesting is I think the voice actors for the folks in the Facade, it sounds like a slightly tweaked version of Japanese, so I don't know about the development of this game, but I'm assuming that the voice actors that they used for those characters are the same ones as the Japanese version, whereas the English-speaking characters like Kaine and Emile and all them were localized. But these voices, especially the King's Advisor, sounds like a Japanese voice actor that's done a million things. Very distinctive voice. And so I think these scenes, especially this one, is very powerful, really well done. And their voice actors just do a tremendous job. So very sad scene. Fyra is again one of my favorite characters from this game, and it was very sad to see her go. But it sets in motion, a string of events that occur that kind of turn things around and bring some positivity and hope to a very tragic situation. And again, I like that they spend so much time on scenes like this. They hold these shots for quite a long time to let it sink in and let you think about it and reflect on what's just happened, versus just immediately making another character talk and forcing you to feel a certain way. And so what's kind of cool is the last section where you were in the junk heap, you have Gideon, who's just sort of angry, and here you have the king, who's understandably angry as well. But it's cool in that he kind of stays himself, and against his own feelings and his feelings on the matter, still has great respect for those around him, and vice versa. His people have great respect for him and the queen. So really good stuff, like in terms of developing these characters. So anyway, thanks for hanging out once again for about half an hour, and I will see you in the next video.